Welcome to the Pinch to Zoom podcast. I'm Stetson.
And I'm Gabe.
In this episode, we are talking about the gig economy. California just passed their AB5 bill, so we'll be talking about that. Some freelance work we've done as both drone pilots. And actually, I don't think I've driven for Uber or Lyft. Have you driven for Uber or Lyft?
I've ridden for Uber and Lyft. They pay me to ride, actually.
Our riding experiences. And of course, some topics in quick news.
Yeah, quick news is always good. But before we get there, why don't we just take a second to sit back and relax and be silent for 5 minutes, right? That's what people listen to podcasts for, not talking.
I'm going to be honest with you. That seems like a rather unusual take. Is this like a new segment you want to introduce, like a meditation segment?
Yeah, meditation segment. You know, people are on their phones too much, so just throw your phone out the window. And actually, let's get into quick news. Quick news. I like to sneak it up on people so they don't expect it. All right, first off in quick news, we have something that is near and dear to my heart. No, it's not the A7S III. A7S III watch is still going on. It is a bit of an appetizer for me, helping tide me over until that's released. It is some GoPro 8 and GoPro 360 Max leaks.
Yeah, Gabe. So what do we have here? First of all, I'm not huge into GoPro. What's the difference between the GoPro 8 and the GoPro 360 Max? And also, why does everything need to add the word Max into the name? Like, what is going on with that?
Just keep adding more names, letters, numbers. If they can keep it under, I think, 100 characters, that's pretty good. But yeah, so these new cameras are GoPro's next generation of action camera. That's the GoPro 8, and the GoPro 360 Max is their 360 camera that will replace the GoPro Fusion.
Okay, those sound like great cameras. So we got an action camera, and we've got a replacement for the Fusion. So this is going to shoot 360 video then?
Yeah, basically 360 video on the 360 camera, probably around 5.7K or greater, because that's what the current Fusion shoots at. Hopefully, 6K would be amazing. And then the GoPro 8 will be probably 4K 60, still unlikely that you'll get 6K in that. Maybe you'll get 4K, 90, 4K 120. Highly doubt that still. It looks like the big updates we're going to get with the GoPro 8 is a new design kind of for the camera, where if you know anything about the current GoPro, basically, you have the GoPro camera itself, and then you have to put in this frame mount that kind of snaps around it, and that's how you mount it to any accessories. It looks like this new GoPro will have the ability that the actual mounting thing is a bit of like a fold out from the bottom of the camera itself, which will kind of be able to shrink the profile of the camera when you're using it mounted to stuff. And then they also are including an accessory port or like little attachment area where you will be able to attach lights, a microphone, different things like that. Even a flip up screen for doing, like selfie shots. And so it looks like they're kind of switching up what they're focusing on with this generation from specs to actually more focusing on like attachments and the camera itself.
That's really interesting to hear because, I was going to ask you, we just had the Osmo Action come out, action camera from DJI.
Absolute trash, by the way.
And it has that...
Not really, not absolute trash, but it got overhyped a lot. The GoPro 7
has that
still
front-facing
the best
screen,
one.
though, so I was wondering if GoPro would kind of follow up with that, and it sounds like with their accessory kit that they're going to come out with, they are indeed addressing that kind of desire for consumers to be able to see themselves while recording.
Yeah, I think that's most likely how they're going to address it rather than actually, directly copying the Osmo Action and putting a screen on the front of the camera. You get a bigger screen with the flip-up screen, possibly some touchscreen, ability as well. But, it's a nice option and a good contrast to show that they're innovating on their own without copying DJI. And that's how it should be, because GoPro really still the best action camera you can get. I've been buying their cameras, reviewing them, and using them since the GoPro 3 Plus. And the GoPro 7, probably the best and most well-rounded action camera to date. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the GoPro 8, and that will probably be coming out around October, most likely first week in October, possibly last week in September. That's traditionally when they do it, and usually it's available for pre-order, usually when they announce it, or if not, it's available pre-order a week later or so.
Sounds great, something to keep our eyes on. Speaking of DJI, though, I see we actually had some price jumps with the Mavic Pro 2, the Mavic Air and the Osmo Action and Pocket. Gabe, what was going on with that? Why did we see DJI increasing their prices on their drones?
I mean, honestly, it could just be because they are the only one that you can really buy a good drone from, and own 73% of the market share, 80% of the market share. I don't know, something ridiculous. However, this wasn't the case. It's actually because of the tariffs that have come in place because of Trump in the U.S., in this ongoing trade war between the U.S. and China. So this is really only in the United States, but it's kind of, I don't care what your politics background is, but if you're a drone flyer, this is not a good thing, because you saw the Mavic 2 Pro go up from, I think I bought it a year ago now, and it was $1,450, I think, or maybe $1,500, around there, right? Like $1,499. Now it's going to cost you $1,700 and something dollars, $1,700, I think, $39 or something like that. Yeah, like up by 15% in price. Same thing with the Mavic Air. It went from $799 to $919. Like, huge price jumps. The Osmo Action went from $350 to $379, and the Osmo Pocket,
might be $400. Is it?
The Osmo Action they kept at $379, so it's slightly cheaper than the GoPro 7. At
nice.
And then the upcoming GoPro 8 at $400, and then the Osmo Pocket went from $350 to $400. However, it's on sale right now through DJI for $319 still.
Those numbers hurt, Gabe. Those numbers hurt.
Yes. But if you are thinking of getting them, though, just a note, go through B&H, Best Buy, Target, Walmart, some third-party retailer. They were in communication with DJI, and so they, DJI was telling them, hey, order a bunch now, build up a stock at the cheaper price. So they're obviously selling off that stock now at that same normal pricing that it was before. And so hopefully that will last a good while into October, and then maybe we'll see the tariffs be taken away, hopefully. But I honestly wouldn't hold out for that.
So we may actually see, it may be a little bit before we see the tariffs fully hitting some stores, but otherwise, like, these prices are shooting up. That's so disappointing. I was actually looking into getting a Mavic Air because it records in a higher bit rate than the Mavic Pro I currently have. So that's disappointing. Of course, the used market, I'm big into looking into that, and that could be a place to explore.
But the thing is, though, honestly, I was thinking for people who are looking to sell a Mavic Air, or I guess a Mavic Air, really, not many people want to sell a Mavic 2 Pro. But if you're looking to sell a Mavic Air and upgrade to the 2 Pro, this is a great time to do it, because your value just went up. If you bought it for $800, now you can sell it for $909. Probably not that much, but like that's how much the new one is, $919. So you could sell it for a little bit more than what you could get a couple weeks ago.
Sure. All right. Up next in quick news, we have this device. It's been leaked. Gabe, how would you describe this?
Google
leak?
is a leaky ship, is what I would just say. It's a leaky pipe. Their basement is filled up with water, and they just can't. It's like their security internal team is just built of like a strainer that you strain spaghetti in. And they have all the Pixel 4s are leaking out.
They're just slipping through. They're gushing.
It got so bad they literally just tweeted a picture of the phone with the name of it. Like, they're like, all right, we're just, screw it. We're basically just going to launch it, but we're not actually going to launch it because it's not really ready. But yeah.
It's kind of like they wanted to turn the basement of the Googleplex just into a swimming pool. Like, the leaks have been pouring out. So we basically know all the specs of the Pixel 4 already. And I'll go through a couple of them here. We are looking at a 5.7-inch AMOLED display, Snapdragon 855 octa-core chip. What's really interesting, this is going to have a 90 hertz smooth display. I know a lot of people have really enjoyed the higher refresh display on the OnePlus 7 Pro. It'll be amazing to see that with the new Pixel 4 and 64 gigs and 128 gigs of internal storage. And Gabe, what's the big thing here with the cameras? Like, what is Google bringing to the table? We just had Apple announce new cameras with their phones. Like, how do you think Pixel 4 is going to stack up?
Pixel 4 is actually not going to have any camera, Stetson. That's pretty surprising,
that's
right?
That's a plot twist, Gabe.
They're not going to do that, unfortunately. Oh, that would be really... Imagine that. Camera without... I almost said a camera. A smartphone without any cameras. Like
a camera without any smartphone?
But traditionally, Pixel has been... a phone that hasn't embraced the dual cameras or, the 3 cameras or 4 cameras even now. The Pixel 3 has only one camera on it. And Google has been able to do a lot of that the good quality photography with all of their software, though. So
it's true. They're using a lot of machine learning, a lot of post-processing to achieve things like portrait mode with just one lens. And to be honest, Pixel line of phones has taken some of the best images for the past 3 years since they came out. And with Pixel 4, we're looking at, as Gabe hinted, the first dual camera setup in a Pixel device. We're looking at a 12.3 megapixel main wide angle lens on the back, complemented with a 16 megapixel telephoto lens. And for the first time, dual 8 megapixel front facing cameras for face unlock. And a new feature that I think could actually blow Apple's new night mode out of the water. This is astrophotography mode. And I think, Gabe, you mentioned this in the previous episode. Basically, Apple was like, all right, we can now take pictures in dimly lit environments. And Google was like, okay, you can now use your phone to take pictures of the freaking galaxy.
That is basically, I think that Google is leaking a lot of stuff on purpose, because this leaked right before Apple's event, basically like that weekend before Apple launched the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro. And so it kind of shadowed over the whole event that, oh yeah, Apple now has this night mode, but Google is coming out with something that allows you to take pictures of stars, which is very hard to do because, the basic gist of it is oftentimes when you're taking pictures of stars, the stars itself are really not more than a pixel or maybe 2 pixels width. And so traditional noise reduction does a horrible job of, like a lot of times it will recognize stars as noise because it's a pixel that's an abnormal color in an otherwise like black sky, right? You have an all black or blue sky, dark blue sky, and then there's a bright white or slightly orange pixel, and they're like, oh, that's some weird noise. Let's get rid of that and turn that black or whatever. And so getting some good noise reduction, which is essential on a smartphone at night, is very hard to do with star photography and astrophotography. So this would be really quite a feat for Google to pull off and execute well.
I think people are going to be really excited about this feature. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it compares. I think there's huge potential for Google to just blow the competition out of the water with this. I've seen some early photos online of people getting their hands on the APK for the camera and using it with their current phones. And, I think, honestly, besides just pulling the stars into the photos, having that insane noise reduction is really going to help your images look sharper, cleaner in those dimmer environments. So that'll be great to see.
And I was talking about comparing it to the Apple, the new iPhones. Why don't we just take a moment to talk? It's not really quick news related, but what are our, our reactions, our thoughts after, now we're a week away or so from the release event of the iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro. What are some thoughts that you've been having or I've been having on those devices now that there's not as much like hype and stuff surrounding it? And we've kind of, it's, we're now thinking sanely and we're not just fueled and like coked up on the Apple event.
And the marketing material they put out, which is always incredible. So first, Gabe, did you order the new phones?
I did not order the new phone. My dad ordered the new phone. He's upgrading from iPhone 10. My sister, I think, will probably get the new phone as well, but she might go for the 11 rather than the 11 Pro. And then I have a couple other friends who I know are upgrading. But what about you, Stetson?
So I'm a little bit on the fence. I ordered the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 11 Pro. I want to do unboxing videos for my YouTube channel. I want to create some content around that. And of course, they're going to be huge buzzwords. People are going to be searching for them. So want to capitalize on that. This might be the first year I don't actually upgrade to these new devices, though, because in my opinion, it's more of a side grade. Like you're sacrificing
a side grade. Are we gonna have to put that in the Urban Dictionary now?
Yeah, it's like, so from the iPhone XS to the iPhone 11 Pro, you're really only getting that ultra wide camera. You're getting a slightly better display, and that's kind of up for debate, like how much of an impact that has.
Better processor, too.
The better processor, which is really only being used for the photos at this point.
And battery life.
And the battery life. So, but my phone easily lasts me through a day, and I think the camera's great. I told you, I take more screenshots than actual photos, so these new features aren't really adding a whole lot of value to my particular use case.
That's what I think general sentiment has been all around online. And I know a lot of people this has been heightened by the fact that next year, what has been deemed or kind of like codenamed the 2020 iPhone is really being, there's a lot of anticipation for it. And that supposedly will include a lot of things that we're seeing in other phones from, Samsung, from OnePlus, from Asus even, and maybe the Pixel 4, but we've yet to see from the iPhone and didn't unfortunately see in this round of iPhones, which is, I think the big ones, right? If you disagree with me if I'm wrong, but I think is the reverse or wireless charging, where you can charge through the phone or from the phone. You would see 5G, hopefully. You would see a higher refresh display. And I guess, is there anything else there?
I think that those are the big features.
USB-C, I guess.
Oh, that's another
possibly.
one. USB-C. Alongside this, we'll see improvements to the camera and the processor again. Something I have heard is
also getting rid of the notch too.
That could be huge, right? Going with that full edge-to-edge display, we could see a resurgence of Touch ID underneath the display. I've heard Apple has patents for that. And the other thing that I was thinking about is, with these older devices, I think the design is stale. So we're going to see possibly a new design refresh with these newer phones. And yeah, I think overall, the upcoming 2020 iPhone has significantly more hype around it than the iPhone 11 that just came out. So I'm actually like, is it too early to start rumors for it? I'm already excited for the new
No,
phone.
I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure Forbes, Tech Radar, CNET, and The Verge all have articles up about when is the iPhone 12 going to be released, or what 2020 iPhone going to be released, and what do we know about it yet? Like literally the day after the iPhone 11 came out. I think that the iPhone 11 was a bigger one than the iPhone 11 Pro is what I think, because of the price, the low price, the colors, the dual shooters on an entry-level phone were all huge things that Apple included. And so I think that's the bigger phone, and actually the biggest thing out of the release, because honestly, the Apple Watch 5, Series 5 was a pretty big letdown. The one thing I would note about the Apple Watch Series 5 is it might point towards Apple's next display, because they have that new display on the Apple Watch, which can change refresh rate, right? I think.
Correct. Variable refresh rate.
So I'm thinking we might next year see that brought to the iPhone, where it can, because the problem with high refresh rate displays like 90 hertz is that it often decreases your battery life. So if they bring that type of display to the iPhone, it could be a 90 hertz, 120 hertz refresh display when you need it, like playing games or stuff like that, or scrolling. But then it can smartly adjust to when the phone's static, that it's a lot lower and conserve battery.
I think it'd be interesting to get some on-display notifications too, when like you get a new text message, just having one part of the screen light up.
That would be really awesome.
Like Samsung's been doing that. Android's just been doing that for a while. I think after the hype, after the buzz, I feel like these phones are a little bit of a letdown. They're the biggest features were processor, camera, battery, and that's pretty much a given every year. And I feel like Apple just took the time to really dive into the new camera features because there wasn't a whole lot else for them to talk about.
That really is, was it more of a camera than a phone? Or
yeah, this is a camera. To your point with the iPhone 11, I think the wide angle lens, adding that's huge. I really like having the wide angle and the Galaxy S10 here. That's been really fun to use and play around with. So I do think it's going to be an incredible phone for those who choose to buy it. It's very weak upgrade from the iPhone XR and iPhone XS, in my opinion. Not as many features and technological improvements as I was hoping for. Again, really pointing to a more exciting 2020 iPhone.
Well, and here's the other question, I think. Have phones gotten to their, are they going to get any thinner? Because this was, I think one of the last years in memory that I can remember where the iPhone didn't get thinner. And they didn't say, and now it's only this thick. And we shaved it down to this many millimeters. Like, are we reaching peak thinness or minimal? I don't know, whatever minimal thinness.
Did it get thicker? I think it actually has gotten.
It might have even gotten thicker. Like, it definitely didn't get thinner, but they obviously aren't going to say, and now it's thicker. Like,
I think the iPhone 8 is thinner than the iPhone 10S or that 10 shape.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've basically reached a point where people care less about the thinness, more about battery life and the features that can add.
Yeah, battery life and like if you can pack a in-screen fingerprint sensor or whatever into the phone.
Sure. So I think
that's pretty much it for our quick news segment. Quick news. And before we get into talking about the gig economy and some other stuff, let's get to our not sponsored section.
That's a
where
great
we
idea.
talk about who we're not sponsored by, right?
This is correct. So we pick a product or a service, an item that we enjoy using in our own lives. And of course, we have no sponsors yet on this podcast. So it's just us sharing cool information in a 30-second time limit. Gabe, you want to go first this time?
Yeah, let me go first. I think I got all my 0 notes ready. So whenever we're good.
On your mark, get set, begin.
This episode of the podcast, I would like to say that we're not sponsored by not buying insurance through your carrier for your smartphone. Yes, this is a very tragic tale that I had to learn the hard way. I broke the back of the glass on my iPhone XS Max and went to go get a replacement from my insurance company, and that's a $250 fee, and they shipped me a replacement. True, it's overnight, but iPhone Apple Care, you get it for $99 repair, and yeah, that's just the moral of this story.
Yikes, Gabe, that's tough. I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. That's a hard one, Gabe.
Yeah. Assurion, don't go with them. They're not very sure. Well, I don't know. They're great if you lose your phone, right? They send you a replacement overnight for $250. That's awesome. But for a repair, like when you can get it from Apple repaired for $99, that's kind of like, yikes. Why am I paying for this?
Right. And Apple too, actually, they just announced, I think it's Apple Care
subscription.
Well, it's a subscription.
Well, you can go longer than 2 years.
Yeah, basically. You can go longer than 2 years. It's a new subscription model. But the other thing is they added another tier where their coverage will actually support lost or stolen devices.
Yeah, I think that's been around for a year or two, actually.
Yeah, I think it came out last year.
I think, how much is that a month? Is that $14.99?
Yeah, I think the regular Apple Care is like $9.99 a month, and then if you want to upgrade to that loss or theft protection, that's $14.99 per month.
Yeah, that's for the iPhone models. They also do have it, I'm pretty sure, for iPads and MacBooks, but those are more expensive, obviously, because it's based off the overall cost of your device. So.
I actually don't think it's that much more expensive. For computer. Actually, you know what?
Well,
I think it's like $300.
My
right?
MacBook Pro, my MacBook Pro was, I think, $359 for the Apple Care. That's 2 years.
That's expensive. I think I was reading for
and that's not the loss or theft. That's only damage.
I think for desktops the price can vary because it's a computer that just sits there, so they're more willing to, like, it's less likely to break.
Yeah, you're not carrying that around in your your briefcase or bringing it to school or whatever. So yeah. Anyways, we're getting a little sidetracked on our sponsored segment, because remember, we're not getting paid for this, so we're wasting valuable audio bits of information on talking about and giving these companies advertising.
Okay. So let's go.
Sorry. All right, I got my stopwatch out. 30 seconds on the clock. Here we go.
This episode of Pinch to Zoom is not sponsored by the new Logitech MX Master Series 3. Get your work done and stay creative and productive with their new mouse. It's got a 4000 DPI sensor, works on all surfaces, including glass, and includes amazing gestures for enhanced productivity in your favorite applications like Adobe Photoshop, Final Cut Pro 10, or Adobe Premiere. Get the Logitech MX Master Series 3 today. It's only $99. It's got some cool features, great ergonomics. It's a fun mouse.
All right, that sounded too much like an actual ad, Stetson. I think you gotta...
I was trying. I don't know. I was listening to other ads and other podcasts, hearing how they phrase things, wanted to spice it up. But Gabe...
Well, you gotta... I mean, if you really wanted to nail it right, you have to put in a use story. That's what they usually ask for, like how you used it. So, how did you use it, Stetson?
Well, I've been using it every day for the past week since I got it.
And now the diss track comes in of me saying that, why would you use a mouse when you can use a trackpad? Like a trackpad, you can do better gestures. You can do, pinch to zoom. Oh, there we go. Like our podcast. You can do swipe left or right, getting the different desktops up, down, launch, whatever mode. yeah, I'm a trackpad fan. I know you like mouses better, but I'm a cat person rather than a dog person. So
my mice will have to steer clear of you.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the main topic for this episode.
Yes.
Finally, right after our quick news segment.
After our extensively long quick news segment, and then longer than it should have been, I guess, about a minute total for the not sponsored segment. So
the gig economy.
The gig economy. What is it, Stetson? What is the gig economy?
The gig economy is basically where we have people, instead of being full-time employees at companies, they're working as independent contractors, taking on jobs and completing a variety of different tasks. So we see this in the driver transportation industry, where we have drivers working for Uber and Lyft. They're acting as independent contractors, chauffeuring people around. We have this in the drone industry. I've done drone projects. You've done drone projects. We basically have pilots that will do projects for DroneBase, DroneGenuity, or other drone companies, act as an independent contractor, do that work and get paid. And even in the creative space, where we have websites like Fiverr or InstaCart and other services allowing people to basically, do odd jobs for hire. That's basically like what the gig economy is.
It connects, the person with the skill or with the means with the person with the needs, right?
Absolutely. And
so you also, I was thinking DoorDash is another good one. Uber Eats, they launched their own thing there, and Grubhub. Yeah, there's a really, and even I think Airbnb would kind of be the gig economy a little bit.
Yeah.
You have these people who are really launching what are essentially like inns or like, bed and breakfasts. I've stayed in some Airbnbs where they come with, coffee. They have like bagels in the fridge with, cream cheese and, like instant, like it's like you're staying at a full hotel, but it's, in this person's like little loft or in a house in their backyard, and it's a really cheap price.
Something I saw too when I was doing research is that the gig economy, these freelancers, it's actually starting to grow quite a lot. So in 2017, there was a report that there were 102 million non-freelancers, and there were only 57.3 million freelancers. However, in just 10 years, by 2027, these are forecast to grow, where the freelancers will outpace the non-freelancers, 86.5 million non-freelancers to 86.5 freelancers. I probably meant like 86.6, but that's like 2017, wow. 10 years. Like, we're going to have
2027,
more,
you mean?
Yeah, 2027, we're going to have more freelancers than actual full-time employees.
Well, that's if the country doesn't follow this new bill that was passed in California, right?
Right, yeah. So, Gabe, do you want to talk about that? Like, what was passed? And
I don't want to talk about that. I just wanted to mention it quickly. No, the bill that was passed was Assembly Bill 5 in California, just recently passed. Won't go into effect until January 2020, and also is going to be challenged extensively in the courts. But basically what it does say is that Uber, it's specifically almost targeting Uber and Lyft, but that these two ride-sharing companies have to pay their drivers and treat them as actual full-time employees. And the reason why is because, an independent contractor is basically usually has to be, described and defined as someone who's performing a job from outside of your company that is not essential and not fundamental to your company's business model.
Ooh.
Yeah, right?
That's interesting.
And so when you think of drivers and Lyft, that's one in the same. You can't say that they're performing really a service and a job that isn't, fundamental and core to Uber or Lyft's business model, right?
I guess, but couldn't you say the same thing with all the other platforms out there? Like Airbnb, are the hosts not performing a task that are not essential to the business?
Well, that's the problem that you get into here. I would say, however, that I think Airbnb is different because that's almost a bit more like eBay, where you're kind of selling something, right? Rather than really a service or a job. But definitely with Uber, or I think even you could do DroneBase, or I don't know. I guess Fiverr would be a bit harder to do. But yeah, this bill is basically looking to say, all right, some of these workers are working excess of 40 hours a week on Uber and Lyft. And so shouldn't they be compensated more fairly, and also given some benefits like, health insurance or, like 401k or retirement, stuff like that.
I think that you bring up a really good point where the pro of being a freelancer is that you have an extremely flexible schedule. You can create your own hours. You can do a diverse range of tasks, and a lot of people can enjoy that. The biggest disadvantage is no health care, no benefits, no 401k retirement plan. If something unexpected comes up, you basically have to dip into your savings to try and cover that.
Or even like, for example, they don't cover insurance on your car.
Right, right. That's a huge thing specifically for Uber and Lyft. Although, I could see it going another way where, these people are kind of like Uber built a network. That's their business model. I think they position themselves as a technology company, right? And so should they have to provide these kinds of benefits to people who are essentially just choosing to use their platform and their services, these people wouldn't have jobs without Uber, right? So,
well, the argument, I think I feel like you're reading straight from Uber and Lyft's, their lawsuit against the bill, but because that's pretty much what the argument that they're using to fight against this bill being passed in California. But I would say the other side of the argument is that Uber and Lyft are taking away a lot of jobs too, because now there's less taxi jobs, there's less, delivery jobs from restaurants, for example. So by the fact that they're undercutting the economy in all these different ways, they're actually removing full-time paying jobs from the market. And a lot of people are having to go to, these part-time independent contractor jobs.
Sure, I can understand that, where, yeah, you're basically eliminating jobs and performing the same tasks at a cheaper price, which makes a ton of sense for business, but kind of sucks for the people working in those jobs where you're losing out on the benefits, the reliable income, right? If you're a freelancer, sometimes you have months where you're making a lot, sometimes you have a downwards trend. So that can definitely be hard.
And I think the other thing that is also particular to Uber and Lyft is that they're paying them not always the same rate. Like, they should be paid, usually if you're, a full-time employee, you're getting paid a standard rate, either like a salary or, by the hour, but it's a certain thing by the hour. Whereas Uber and Lyft, you can some hours, if it's not many people out there, you can be getting paid very little per hour, versus, other times you're getting paid a lot, but it really, it's not very steady.
It's almost like a race to the bottom, honestly, with human labor, where it's whoever will perform the task at the cheapest price will get the job. And some people, they need the money, so they'll be willing to go at lower and lower rates.
Well, that's a very, I think I brought that up on a previous episode about, DroneBase and drone deploy. I don't know, or maybe that was just in conversation amongst ourselves, but it's kind of what we saw with, goods and manufacturing, a race to the bottom there. This is then turning human, performance and humans themselves into a commodity and just going, let's just get the cheapest we can get possible, and then have them, do that and use them and plug them into the system.
Have you worked in the gig economy? Either it sounds like you haven't been a driver, but have you been a freelancer for other projects or done maybe video work or other kinds of work on a freelance basis?
I guess the best thing or closest thing would probably be like, the drone flying, DroneBase or Droners.io, I think is the other one. I even did one for DroneGenuity. And, I've also done, freelance work through, for real estate and stuff like that. But that's less, I think, of the gig economy and more just kind of like, kind of semi-small business type stuff. But yeah, my experience flying for, DroneBase and several companies like that it's been off and on. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is great. You're getting paid pretty well. And it's, it's just a little extra money to bring in, to subsidize whatever your regular income is. However, it's pretty sad to see sometimes how much of a cut they're taking. For example, sometimes I'll see jobs come up on DroneBase, and they'll start maybe like an $80 payout, for this job. That's like, maybe go take, like 20 aerial photos and like 20 videos at all these specified heights and directions or whatever. And then, no one will claim it or accept the job. And then it'll go up to like all of a sudden it'll be like 150. And then very quickly it'll be $200. And you're like, how do they have that much room to play with that this job that was $80 payout is now more than doubled the payout in like less than a week, or so. So that's a bit sad to see sometimes.
Sure. I bet the margins are pretty high. It's also challenging, I think, as someone paying, not necessarily for drone services, but for a ride, like how much of the money goes to the driver? Should you tip them? Like, what's the policy there? And I know it can be different from app to app. And I also think the transportation costs are different too. So, for example, have you used Uber or Lyft? Like, I took a ride. I had to get home from work, didn't have a car, and it was $30. I think it was $32 for me to drive about 11 miles. Like, that was expensive. I couldn't afford to pay $60 a day to do that.
Yeah, that is a bit expensive, but if you consider the costs that go into that, that's not really that expensive. I mean, I was out in LA for a semester in college, and I used Lyft and Uber pretty extensively. I generally liked them both very much, and I always talked with the drivers, but I found that the drivers tended to like Lyft better, and the costs were pretty equal across both. The interesting thing, though, is that neither companies have been able to actually ever make a profit. So you have these companies that are valued at millions, are they billions of dollars? Yeah, no, not billions, millions of dollars, and they're not making a profit at all.
It's so weird to think about. But I think the value of the company is on this business model where they can have a lot of recurring revenue, and they're making a pretty huge change in the industry. So it's interesting to see what they do and where they go. I know I was listening to a podcast, and they do change their rates a lot. And as a driver, you would want to focus on doing the rides that would maximize your income. I know the person on the podcast was talking like, if they pay over a certain amount of miles to go pick someone up, so it's a faraway pickup, and you get paid to do that, it makes sense, go ahead and do that. But if they change their policy and suddenly it doesn't make sense to pick those far people up, then just do the closer rides. So you kind of have to game the system almost. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how they're changing. They're changing their pricing strategies and structure, trying to figure out a system that's sustainable for them and for their drivers. But I definitely hope the drivers are getting paid a fair amount, because they have a lot of costs that Uber and Lyft don't necessarily assume. Car insurance, gas, general upkeep of their vehicles.
I mean, on top of just like they want to earn money from this, they're not trying to just do this for free and just break even, Also, what's interesting is how exactly this is reshaping the economy. I know you said how, full-time jobs are going to be outnumbered by 2027. I mean, even just looking now, though, I'm thinking back to like my parents' generation, it was very much the mindset that, you got one job, you pretty much worked that for your life, and that was it. Now it's not even that you're moving from one job to another fairly quickly. It's that you could be working several jobs at once. And I mean, you'll find many people who are working a full-time job and then have, a gig economy job on the side, just to add a little income. And I think a lot of it has to do with possibly that, the minimum wage has lagged behind a little bit across the country, depending on where you are. And also that just these opportunities are popping up as well.
Yeah, I guess I'll add to that. I think most people using or drivers for these services are doing it more on a part-time basis. And, it wouldn't, for those individuals, it wouldn't make sense to count them as full-time employees, right? If they're putting in fewer than 30 hours per week. But for the other ones, maybe. The other big thing is that I think if California decides to call these individuals full-time employees, suddenly they can tax them, right? And this is a huge tax revenue. So I almost wonder if like the actual earnings of these drivers would go down, right? If they suddenly have to pay taxes on everything they're earning.
I have a feeling it wouldn't, because I bet there's something, I haven't looked at the specific bill, but there's probably, California is usually pretty good with fully thinking out the ramifications of the bill. But I mean, that could be an issue that we see. The question I have is, would this affect other industries, that are gig economy related, like we said, Airbnb, DroneBase, does DroneBase all of a sudden have to start providing like insurance and, insuring people's drones or stuff like that, and, or whatever for the drone flyers?
I think this case will definitely set a precedent. So it'll be important to follow how it plays out. and what kind of legislation ends up being passed at the end of it. But, it does bring up a really interesting question. I think the moral of the story may not be to treat these freelancers as full-time employees, but possibly that there's an opportunity to transform how we build healthcare plans, how we build retirement plans. And maybe there could be another company that could essentially pool all of these freelancers together and possibly provide some of the benefits they're missing out on. I don't necessarily know if...
I mean, that's almost like unionizing, right? Isn't that kind of a little bit?
Maybe. I feel like unions are to try and make demands from companies, though. I feel like
True.
This would almost be its own company to offer those services that aren't being provided. I don't know. Because to me, with all the other services, like you have Fiverr or Instacart or like Handy, right? Where you have these other services that are basically acting like robust networks for connecting people together to get work done. It doesn't seem to make sense in my mind to count everyone as a full-time employee.
Well, it definitely depends how many hours they're putting in. I think that would be the biggest stipulation. Like you said, if you're putting less than 30 hours in, you're not a full-time employee. And the question is, what is to stop, Lyft and Uber from putting a cap on how many hours these people can work?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, too, is everything's kind of developing so fast. How do you think self-driving and autonomous vehicles would play into this, right?
Well, yeah, you're right. Like, this could increase... I know Lyft and Uber are already working on, their self-driving and autonomous vehicles, and Tesla supposedly by 2021 they're going to have a full self-driving fleet.
Something ridiculous that
your
Elon
Tesla can
tweeted.
Your Tesla can drive around while you have it parked, and it can make you money. So I think that this could increase the amount that Uber and Lyft start investing in those autonomous vehicle platforms, because right now it looks like the big pinch and their biggest cost is actually the drivers.
So if they can cut that cost, maybe they can turn a profit. I heard on another podcast, this guy thinks that Uber should actually buy Tesla and use all of their autopilot data and their vehicles to just build a fleet of autonomous vehicles that can chauffeur people around.
That would be very interesting. I don't know. Uber has enough money to buy Tesla.
Yeah, I think, aren't they both losing money? Like, neither company's profitable.
They're both
like
losing money,
verge.
but they're valued at so much, and they keep getting outside investment, people coming in, because they're making people money, right? People are profiting off it, but they're not actually, as a company, making money, which is a very interesting concept, I think, with business, that a company could be, their CEOs could be getting super rich, their investors could be making tons of money, but the business itself is not a sustainable business model. Currently.
Absolutely wild. Absolutely
Yes.
wild. How do you feel? I mean, the other concept I came across for this was universal basic income. Like, do you feel that there are other ways to provide people with the benefits they need, or to address some of the concerns of the gig economy without necessarily...
We're getting a little bit more into politics, but I would say that this is where someone like Andrew Yang or a more progressive platform comes in and says, and acknowledges the fact that, as like you said, by 2027, there's going to be more part-time jobs or gig economy jobs than full-time. And with that, people are going to lose a lot of the benefits that they get with that full-time job, namely healthcare, but also a stable source of income. So something like a universal basic income, or a freedom dividend, as Andrew Yang calls it, or a single-payer, government provided health insurance or Medicare for all, is a very, timely option, and very, a thing that we might have to seriously consider, no matter your political affiliation and opinions, because it just might be completely necessary in order to stop like total chaos and anarchy from breaking out, because people just, the economy is no longer, like in check with what our politics is and what our government is doing because of technology, how fast it's going.
Right. And, something I've heard too is that introducing a freedom dividend or a similar concept can actually help the economy grow by about 12% within 8 years, just because you're giving people, especially in the lower income brackets, more money to spend and put back into the economy to help it grow.
Trickle-up economy, basically.
Right.
I know everyone always... Trickle-down economy was extreme myth created by rich individuals that has perpetrated for quite a while. It was honestly a very successful ad campaign and propaganda thing on their part. But trickle up, I think, is definitely the way that we're gonna have to go in the future, because there's a lot less jobs, and as things become more automated, we're gonna have to find ways that the government can recirculate money to the bottom so that the economy can actually keep moving and people can buy things so that companies can make things, right? If no one at the bottom has money, no one's going to buy a new Apple smartphone. No one's going to buy the new Sony A7S III. No one's going to take rides in a new Tesla or whatever.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of transitions we're going to have to go through. I mentioned autonomous vehicles. Getting people just into the first autonomous vehicle and making that a comfortable experience, I think is going to be a pretty big hurdle. But I think it's one we can make, right? Because we did it with airplanes. Take an airplane, that's 90% autonomous at this point, and everyone feels pretty comfortable getting on an airplane, going on pretty regular flights.
Do we just have an inflatable driver in the front seat?
Yeah, I mean,
feel comfortable.
There are people there,
like Alexa enabled with an AI, so they can talk to them.
Right. Oh my goodness, that just like a little speaker in there, and so like airport air traffic control instead of actually managing the aircraft because they can all self-manage themselves.
Yeah,
they're just like making regular interval pilot announcements.
Yeah.
Oh, it's your captain speaking. We're gonna hit some turbulence.
Yeah, and then like it gets like staticky. You're like, wait, what a second, hold on, is this? And then you're like, he's talking. I think he thinks he's talking to a different flight. He starts saying different flight number. You're like, oh boy, this is not good.
Who is flying this plane right now?
Yeah, I think also we'll see technology start to disrupt what is most likely the fast food industry, which will be like going in and ordering either via your phone, which is now already happening, or going into a Burger King and it's just a kiosk that you order at, touchscreen, which they do have at Panera Breads. And then there's basically possibly no workers behind the counter, especially at a fast food restaurant, all just machines doing it. Yeah, that's possible. And then also I think retail is obviously hugely impacted by the likes of Amazon, Walmart online, Etsy, eBay, and such.
I think this reminded me of a pizza restaurant. I think it's in California, and they're using a robot to fully make the pizzas, like make the dough, put the sauce on, put the ingredients on. And
wow.
one of the compelling arguments behind doing this is it reduced the cost of producing the pizza so that they can invest that additional money into actually providing higher paid jobs for their employees, providing additional benefits and stuff. So even though the robot may be reducing the number of total jobs, it can make the jobs that remain more fulfilling, more rewarding, and higher paying for the people who do work those jobs.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you think, going back to the gig economy, what do you think is the next area we might see the gig economy come to? Or I can't really think of anything else that we could possibly see, like what is some skill that people have that hasn't been yet connected to other people in the gig economy?
You ask a really good question, Gabe. I did not come to this podcast prepared to launch my next business idea.
I didn't really either, but I'm just trying to it's an interesting thought to think. I've been thinking a lot about, is there a way that like recycling can be turned into a gig economy, for example?
Where maybe you have someone, instead of a garbage man, you just have one person grabbing your neighbor's trash in the back of their car, driving to a recycling plant.
Well, more like, because I think as resources become more, limited, for example, like with smartphones or electronics, there's a lot of rare earth metals used in that. And, we've seen Apple introduce a lot of recycling programs, but a lot of times recycling is pretty confusing. I mean, even just when you're at like a store or a restaurant or like some place, a cafe, and you go to throw your trash and recycling out, it's like, which hole does which go in? Like, is this fork recyclable, or is that go in the trash, or is it maybe compostable because it's made from plant material? Like, it's so confusing. So maybe introducing a way that, there's recycling centers and, these gig workers could, go and pick up, boxes of recycle. Like, say you had a bunch of electronics and you can schedule, all right, have this person come pick it up, pay to get it taken away. And then maybe you get some extra money back. I don't know. It could be something like that, because I think that's going to be something that we see a big need as, China has shut down a lot of their recycling, and now a lot of the recycling stuff is being thrown away in the U.S.
It's true. We're having a minor recycling epidemic. It's crisis. It's a huge issue. I think I would see the most opportunity honestly in creative spaces, because a lot of like low skill labor jobs, those can be automated, those can be taken over by machines, those can be achieved at greater efficiencies and productivity levels, often with machines, robots, and other resources. So creativity remains one of the biggest skills I think humans can have, and finding a way to connect people with creative passions and creative skills with people in need, I think that's going to be a really great thriving environment. And I know we already have systems like this with Fiverr where you can get creative services, but I think that's really where people will be able to show their value and to do work that they're passionate about.
What about gig economy friends? Like being friends with someone for money. Now, hear me out here, because
Gabe,
we've
this
had
is
all
weird.
these. I know, right? We've had all these studies come out where people who use more social media. This study came out that people who use more social media are more likely to be depressed or have anxiety and stuff like that, and because there's less connections they have in the real world. So what if you saw, hey, I got to pay to have this friend and go talk to this, go hang out with a friend. And so you have people who are just professional friends or who are just fun to be around people, hiring themselves out because people are just surrounded by so much technology, robots, AI assistants, that they're losing that human connection. And human connection actually becomes a commodity then.
That is so weird. That is so weird. That's like a futuristic movie.
By the way, your parents are paying me to right now be FaceTiming and podcasting with you. So,
oh my God, is that what that transaction is?
I shouldn't have told you that, actually. I think I just violated the terms and conditions.
Those are really creative.
Don't know what.
They're creative
I am kidding,
ideas.
just so in case you couldn't tell. You were a bit like taken off guard with that.
Oh yeah, Gabe, you've got some really bizarre ideas rattling around in your head.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a bit too forward thinking, I think, for where we are. But yeah, I think the creative space, that's something more likely we'll be seeing in the future. It's just, where is the limit of the future? Because new technology not only creates possibilities, but also, introduces new problems.
It does. And oftentimes new legislation needs to be passed or needs new regulations. We're kind of slow to adapt in some regards, but we're fast to adapt in others.
Yeah, that is a good way to wrap it up, I think. We're about at an hour, or about at 50 minutes, I think, or so. I can't tell because we spent too much time talking before we actually started the podcast. But thank you guys for listening to this episode. Chime in on Twitter, or, leave us your thoughts on wherever your social network you want to interact with us, because we'd definitely like to hear what you have to think on the gig economy. Are you working currently in the gig economy? Do you know someone who does? Like, what are your thoughts there? This is really a thing that has to do with, the breaking point of technology and like that cutting edge and how that's being used to influence people, money, and then also just like the advancement of technology.
Yeah, and feel free to share your thoughts on the AB5 bill that was just passed in California. Of course, as Gabe mentioned, you can find us on social media at Pinch to Zoom Podcast and at Pinch to Zoom Pod. And yeah.
Look for a new episode coming out. We're probably going to do one every week, I think, in September and maybe October, because this is the Tech-tember, Tech-tober fun time of the year with a lot of product launches, lots of technology news coming out. And yeah, check out unboxings of the iPhone, most likely on Stetson's channel and on my tech channel as well. Some fun stuff to see there. And of course, share this with a friend. If you have someone who is in the gig economy, maybe they want to hear more about the economy they work. Actually, they probably don't. They're probably tired of hearing about it. So send it to someone who isn't in the gig economy so they can be a bit more educated about what's going on in the world that's not immediately around them.
Leave us a review if you like this podcast as well. We would certainly...
Don't leave us a review if you didn't like it, though. Please.
Only if you liked it.
Yes.
Also, Gabe, his services are for hire. If you're looking for a friend, hit up Gabe. He'll create...
What is that going to be? Are we bringing back Friendster? Is that the new... or
Oh my God, it's coming back.
Friend.me. Maybe that's the...
Gabe.me.
No. Oh yeah, it's just me, just AI versions of me.
You spread. All right, thank you so much for listening. I'm Stetson.
And I'm Gabe.
And we'll
hire me.
we'll talk to you in the next podcast episode.
It's my birthday today.
Happy birthday. Should we sing happy birthday on the podcast?
No. What I was going to say is 25 years ago, 4 megabytes of RAM was considered the norm.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, just think about that for a second. I think pretty much a nightlight now has 4 megabytes of RAM in it.